Welcome to Two Guys.
A girl.
and an MBA.
I think the U.S. might be able to purchase Greenland with all the money they saved from funding the Department of Education, as President Donald Trump
Wow.
signed an executive order Thursday directing U.S. Education Secretary of Education Linda McMahon to work toward eliminating the Department of Education. This is according to edsource.org, pushing forward a campaign promise to dismantle an agency that has long been maligned by conservatives. They cut 4,100 jobs already. They're trying to make more cuts. They're saying it's not going to affect students and people K through 12 that depend on the system, but children's advocates are remaining skeptical of the fallout. So maybe we could take all that money and buy Greenland for the U.S.
The thing about all these issues is like, I don't think anybody has deep subject matter like understanding of what is going on, and I'm the same. So all I know is in Canada, the parallel is at the federal level, we do not, I don't think we have a Department of Education.
Hmm.
Each province controls their own education. And in our country, that's particularly important for the French-speaking populace who have they control education. They don't want to be controlled by the English-speaking part. So I think, I mean, again, I'm not a subject matter expert, but I think that's what Donald Trump has done. He's dismantled the federal oversight, I guess. And now he's saying each state has to handle it unique to the needs of the state. Because I think, if you ever look at the map of the United States, it is broken down into ancestral groups. In the South, you'll have a lot of blacks who are American. And then in the West, you'll have predominantly Spanish. Those are because of Spain and how they settled those areas. In the Northeast, you'll have English, like from England. That's where they came from, New England states. In the middle, the number one ethnic group in the United States, lineage-wise, are Germans, and they all are in the middle parts of the United States. So that doesn't mean that, education has to be specifically German, Spanish, African or English, but they have different requirements. And I think that's what he's trying to say. He doesn't say it that way. I don't think he's like bombastic about it. And I think that's what he's trying to accomplish. Turn it over to let individual states make this work.
The article says the federal government funds less than 10% of public school budgets, though much of that money goes to vulnerable kids and includes Pell Grants, which are the grants that let, I think, the most needy people, most low-income students go to college. But I take your point that, especially when you think about it, do you want to send your kids to a public school or private school? I mean, most people, if they have the funds, they'll send them to private school. And a lot of people, sure, there are top public schools around. They tend to be in the richest neighborhoods, so they're well funded. This is why most people do tend toward private school if they have the funds to afford it. So it's really, when we're talking about schools, and it's really, we're talking about funding. We're talking about economics and giving everyone an equal level playing field, equal access, which is just, in my opinion, utopian and just not realistic. And so I think what you need is a policy decision or vision that levels that playing field, not by taking away from people with more advantages, but by giving people with fewer advantages similar chances. And I guess that's what some people are criticizing from these cuts.
Well, look, I think the cuts, something has to happen. If I don't know if you can pull it up, but where America sits right now in their test scoring, it
Yeah.
is atrocious for the
Yeah,
amount of money that
great point.
they
The
spend.
outcomes are
Yeah.
pretty
The
horrendous. Yeah.
outcomes, right? So the remedy might not be perfect, but you need to do something, okay? And doing nothing is not an option because America always is the lowest, which is it's the richest country on planet Earth, yet they're producing as an average not very smart students, and that they're probably located in the poorer parts of America. The other thing about private and public school, with your public school, the same thing. I don't know about the Ukraine, but in Canada, it's the same thing. If you want to go to a great school, public school, you have to live in the district.
Yeah.
You're not allowed
Yeah,
to go
yeah,
outside
the
that.
Same
same, the
thing in the
Same
same,
thing.
US. Yeah.
the same
Same
here.
thing.
It was like a reform because if Ukraine want to be part of European Union, there is a list of requirements, and one of them it was to reform your educational system, health system, and everything. And I think it's a part of this. requirements was to, okay, reform your educational system. And right now, if you live there physically, you can attend this school. You can came, put the name of your child in the line, but still you can do it. But and again, if you have money, you can go to private school, whatever you want.
So that promotes generational poverty. If you're
Yeah.
living in a poor
Yeah.
area and your children are only allowed to go to this poor school, like the school in that poor area, you're promoting generational poverty just based on the geography. So there, I mean, I think they got to look at it. There's no perfect solution, but I think when you're at the bottom and you're the richest, that's bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking, this is just GPT, but it's talking about equity in education. It's saying, Canada is consistently placing top 10 for reading and math and so forth, and the US is ranked lower. And also the equity, the access to education, it's a significant issue in the US, whereas in countries like Canada or Finland, like we talked about earlier with the happiness report, they have more equitable education. It's maybe more evenly distributed, the educational access to educational assets, if you want to call them. you know, uh, uh, I think everybody wants the same thing, that a kid that's born in a lower class household would have the same opportunities to excel at the top level and contribute to society as the kid that's coming from a billionaire class family. That we want those kids, if the billionaire kid has extreme gifts, great. We should amplify their gifts. If the person from the low income opportunity, has, we should give them opportunities to excel too. I think that.
I can share example in Ukraine. The same during this reform of education. Uh, uh, right now, all people, when you graduate from the school, you need to. It's not an exam, like a test. And if you got, I think, 200 points, you can be attend like a university free. And because we have the internet, even in the rural areas and access, I think it's possible to prepare your kid, even you in somewhere far, far from the rich district and everything, to pass this exam. But on the other hand, this is in the mind of parents. If parents didn't have this experience, they didn't graduate any college, university, and everything, how can they support children in this and say, oh, this is the opportunity? The real one is, yeah, you just learn what you need to learn. You just pass this test. This is test for whole country. It's the same questions at the same day, at the same time. I think it's even online because I didn't pass it because I graduated before the reform. But anyway, the possibility exists because of the internet, AI, and access. You don't need a library in your village
Yeah,
to have
yeah,
this knowledge.
technology definitely levels
But
the playing
it's
field.
so many depends on parents. Even if you have money, you can be super stupid if your parents don't pay attention to this and say, read the book, the mathematics, physics, chemistry, do something with it. They teach you to learn something
Even
new.
if you have money, you can be super stupid like me.
I don't
No,
think
you're
so.
not.
Yeah, you bring up the British were interesting, for the longest time in their colonies, they had these things. They would have standardized tests. They would call them the senior Cambridge tests. They
Mhm,
still have
mhm.
it. So they would offer scholarships because my parents come from Guyana, which was a former colony, and all throughout the Caribbean. The British would send tests down, and they'd start to pick out the promising students. There's a bunch of authors that came out of Trinidad that went on to become I forgot his name now, but so they had that way of implementing, let's pick out through some kind of standardized testing and give opportunities in places where those children wouldn't have access to great education. And then they get scholarships and they would go off all over. I think my dad got a scholarship. And that obligation, I think almost for people who have it to try to figure out ways to go find people who don't and give them a pathway to education, which in turn benefits the country they come from because they generally go back. And with more knowledge and a broader view of the world, they make major impacts in their country. And a lot of, like from my country of Guyana, the one prime minister, got educated in England, went back and became prime minister. He wasn't a great prime minister, mind you, but at least he had a different worldview. So I think education is solves a lot of things for poor countries
Eh,
if you
True.
can find a way.
And I think education is one of those common goods, unlike public parks and lakes and things, which are great, and we shouldn't get rid of those either. But
Next, they're
um,
coming next. They're
they're
going
coming
next.
next, right? Probably.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's more akin to infrastructure. I look at it like infrastructure has economic value. Like they call it fiscal multiplier. Like you can quantify, like the amount, economists do quantify the amount of, spending or like when you do public spending on building a bridge or building a road or building a whatever infrastructure, a port, airport. Um, you can quantify how much that infrastructure is going to multiply the effect of growing the overall economy. So that's how you justify, well, we're going to spend $1 billion on a bridge, but it's going to make everyone's commute shorter, and that's going to increase business in this area, and it's going to have a $3 billion positive, net positive economic multiplier effect. So I think education is one of those. It's just a long term, it's like a lagged effect. Like you make the investment and you don't see it for generations. And that's why we are talking earlier about generational gaps. And so you see the same thing in the opposite direction happen. When you don't make the investment, you see the vicious
Mm-hmm.
cycle of declining standards and declining economic prosperity. And that's the fear that a lot of people have when the outcomes are not good in America. Is it really the right move to cut the budget? Shouldn't we be investing in that multiplier effect of education? Please consider subscribing below.
Thank you for being with us. Please leave your comments, feedback, what you think about us, and see you in the next podcast. Bye.